All right, so it's time to do another quick research and point making dive. I want to reiterate that I was arrested at my home with a whole SWAT team for extracting dimethyltryptamine from the Mimosa hostilis. And what ended up happening after that, by the way, I was extracting it because psychiatry had yet to even kind of really scratch the surface on actually treating my diagnosis instead of just punishing me when I had a psychological failure due to being abused because of my disability. And that's why I was extracting the DMT. And in fact, I had done so for a year prior under a CTS federal clearance. And as soon as Trump got elected, the state police arrested me. So I want to look deeper into this because after that happened, was given a I was given a prescription for ketamine. And I want to highlight something very important here, that there's no reason that they should have interfered with me unless they were in it for the money, because there was nothing actually illegal about what I was doing. I wasn't hurting anybody. The DMT worked. Um, and now let's look at something very important. Just a review, real quick. All right. So I'd like to point out that there's a lot of um, circumventing language used when I'm doing research. I'm not using circumventing language. There's a lot of circumventing language being used on the side of the search results when I'm researching this topic. It seems like there's a lot of obscurity about ketamine and that they kind of are making it seem like it's so drastically different from DMT. And I think the only reason they're doing that is because they can call it ketamine and then make money off of it, whereas dimethyltryptamine can't be copyrighted. Because look at this, and this is not something I was aware of directly before I was arrested. I had to start doing research and figure this out. Look at these chemical structures. Look how similar they are. Look at that. And then look at this. The main difference here is that salt compound, that chlorine, and there's an NO. But think about if it's in a hydrated scenario and it's a salt extraction, wouldn't you end up with a Cl and an extra oxygen? Isn't that just a different bonding format? Aren't these exactly the same chemical with a different bonding format? And is it not true that if you do a dimethyltryptamine salt extraction, which would be something like, let's see if I can find it. Hold on, maybe it's in this one. Check, check. Just making sure it's still recording. Uh, this, like this extraction right here, the ATB salt tech, is it or is it not true that if you do this extraction that it would result in ketamine, which is not something I was expecting, but is it or is it not true that it would actually result in ketamine, which is being portrayed as completely medically viable, whereas dimethyltryptamine is being portrayed as not not uh, illegal for medical use. It's being portrayed as illegal for medical use, whereas ketamine has been used in in medicine for a really long time. But isn't hasn't DMT been used for longer, especially in native traditions? And like I said, isn't the only reason ketamine, what does that mean? Ket, what is ket? Amine, I know what an amine is. Uh, but doesn't it just mean like it puts you in a state of a ketone group, a ketone and an amine? So that's a very vague term. So technically, has an amine functional group, but does it have a ketone? Does not have a ketone. Carbonyl group, which it is that not the that is the salt extraction. That's the only difference. Is that this is bonded to that oxygen, which only occurs because of this chlorine. That's the only difference. So why is it they're saying that this is so drastically different? So look at it this way. Technically classified as a dissociative anesthetic, while it can produce psychedelic effects at higher doses, its primary mechanism involves inhibiting NMDA receptors. DMT, classified as a classical psychedelic which works on a specific serotonin receptor. Guess which serotonin receptor that is. Guess which one it is. NMDA. So really, there's no difference. Look, well, while it can produce psychedelic effects at higher doses, same thing with this. Guess what it does at lower doses? It's a dissociative anesthetic. Known for rapid mood improvement and dissociative effects. Dissociative effects can include a sense of detachment from one's body and surroundings. In other words, creates intense, short-lived visionary experiences. These are the same thing. They're acting like it's two completely different things, but they do the same thing. You know what the salt compound does? It increases its stability. That's all it does, which means it doesn't break down as fast when you store it. You know, like when you salt a meat, that's all this does. That's all the salt does. It doesn't make the drug behave all that differently. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. It does this, that, and the other. Okay, well, what if you have salts in your body already? Oh, well, then it doesn't do that. It just does the same thing as the other thing. Exactly. Therapeutic applications, and we just said, why is it illegal for medical use? Because it's harder to store. It's harder to put into cold storage and keep it. You mean you need to handle it more delicately, which is why it's only acceptable in research and ceremonial contexts? Provides rapid relief and allows for short, repeatable sessions. Offers intense visionary experiences that require appropriate guidance and integration for therapeutic benefit. So basically, these two things are the same thing. They're pretty much exactly the fucking same thing. And the only reason that they took what I was doing away from me is because they wanted to bully me and they thought I had money that they could take from me. And then they wanted to put me on their source so that they could essentially scalp me. Now, am I saying that what they're doing in general, am I saying that ketamine shouldn't be available to people? No. It should be available in a medical setting. However, I created my own medical setting. And there was no reason for there was no reason for anyone to interfere with it. And then when we tried to get my case transferred to the mental health docket, they said my mental health wasn't my mental health diagnosis wasn't serious enough. Okay, well then why did you guys send me to psych wards over 10 times? Why have I had so many different diagnoses and you say, "Oh, you can't own a gun." Okay, so I can't own a gun, but my diagnosis isn't serious enough that when I'm making my own medicine to treat my mental health, for it to be treated as a mental health case, you're treating it as a criminal case because you think I was interfering. You think I'm a quote unquote, I'm an op and that I was cooking up on you and that you were going to lose business or something or that I was a competitor or something. Also, point and case is that this dimethyltryptamine was federally decriminalized in DC. There was an initiative to federally decriminalize it. And I'm like, what, 10 minutes from DC? So what's the deal, guys? What is the deal here? Would you like to inform me of what is actually going on? Oh, and also the other thing is when I'm looking at ketamine, I can't seem to find very good information on where it's what plant it's being extracted from. They keep saying, "Oh, it's made in a lab. It's synthesized." Here, I'll just say what watch what happens when I type this search in. What is ketamine? Blah 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 blah. Blah 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 blah. Blah blah blah. What's its origin? Uh you mean okay, so Mexico is what you're basically saying. Okay, so you mean like this? Is that what you're talking about? Like this one right here? Is that where ketamine comes from? But notice how they didn't actually say. They just start saying that next they're like, how is it abused? What are its street names? What's its effect? Which, okay, let's see what K-Land. Oh, let's start using colloquials instead of sticking to the goddamn facts. God, users are convinced that they have met their maker. Yeah, that's why it's called the spirit molecule. That's why DMT is called the spirit molecule. But you're talking about ketamine, right? Now you're talking about ketamine? But what's this about? What's this about that? Okay, so what are we talking about again? Oh, and remember, this what is ketamine made from? It's made from cyclohexane. Okay, it's a synthetic compound classified as an aryl cyclohexylamine, meaning that you extracted it using cyclohexane. Let's see what that is. Cyclohexane extraction refers to the use of cyclohexane as a solvent to separate or isolate specific substances from a mixture or sample. You mean like naphtha does? Look, it's already completing to extraction. Production of cyclohexane from naphtha. Looks like cyclohexane is a derivative of naphtha. What a fucking coincidence. Because what do you know? That's what you use in a DMT extraction. Isn't that just fucking fantastic? Oh, look, right here it says using naphtha or heptane or hexane. Isn't that just amazing? So let's go back. Let's go back to see what are we talking about here? An amine, which is extracted using cyclohexane. Now let's see if we can actually find let's see if we can find what plant they're saying it's derived from. Treatment for depression. Seems like my depression was serious enough to warrant an intravenous ketamine infusion. And I would I would wager a guess that this is supposed to be my proper diagnosis. Along with this, I have not responded well to traditional antidepressant medications. cyclohexane, methylamine, chloroform. So they're using chloroform. And what was it? Somewhere someone said like, oh, unlike other drugs, I think it was I think it was well, I read one of the things recently. Is it this one? One of them was saying, unlike other drugs, which are made with random harmful chemicals such as gasoline and paint thinner, um, this is made in the lab. So basically, um, cyclohexane is used, and that is made from naphtha, which is paint thinner. So basically, it's exactly the same thing, and you people are full of shit. And it uses chloroform. You're saying it uses chloroform. Now, I'm going to take a pause right here because I'm positive that I've been non-consensual. I've been lied to in my past sexual relationships to the degree and treated poorly and harmed to the degree which it constitutes rape. Women treating me this way. And I've also had inexplicable experiences where I have felt extremely violated. So I wonder what's actually going on here because did you see what it said? Ketamine has also been used to facilitate sexual assault. Now, I can promise you that I have never sexually assaulted anyone. And yet I have been sexually assaulted multiple times by women that I can remember. How does that keep happening? And you're looking to prosecute me? And you know, the whole thing is that the court system is acting super rapey about this. They're acting super fucking rapey about all of this. All right, let's go back. The whole point is I'm trying to figure out what plant they're talking about. They're acting like the cyclohexane, methylamine. So what is it? It's also a key precursor in the synthesis of methamphetamine, which is something that was being said, oh, well, unlike methamphetamine, it's using the same shit. It's using exactly the same shit to create it. Oh, various techniques such as distillation, crystallization, and filtration. You mean what I was doing with the DMT? It's not a starting material. You're acting like it's a start. It's just a solvent to ultimately form ketamine. It doesn't form the ketamine at all. All it is a solvent. And what are you doing with this? What are you doing with methylamine? Chloroform. And what the fuck are you using chloroform for? Oh, are these the acids and the base? Is methylamine an acid or a base, and chloroform is the opposite? Oh, it's a base. It's a weak base. Okay, but it is a base nonetheless. So you're saying because it's a weak base that it's not harmful? Sounds like it's harmful to me. Chloroform's pretty harmful. Okay, so weakly acidic properties. So basically, all you're doing with ketamine is an acid base reaction, and because they're not strongly acidic or basic, you're saying that they're not dangerous. And yet, chloroform, is much more dangerous than ascorbic acid. That's insane. Is that what you're doing? Oh, it acts as a solvent. Why are you using chloroform as a solvent if you're already using cyclohexane? Hexanone, cyclohexanone. You didn't give a single plant. So what you're saying is that all you're doing is using toxic chemicals to create this. You're just using what so far you're just saying that you're using extremely toxic chemicals to create this substance. Whereas what I was doing was extracting an organic nutrient from a plant which was harvested by a national council using safe ingredients, using household safe ingredients. And you're saying that I'm being criminal. Let me guess, you're acting like this is me. Oh, outside the purview of the law. Whoa, 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 whoa. It's a significant risk because we're gonna raid your house and point guns at you and try to kill you. Significant risk. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because we're gonna kill you. Because we have no self-control. Maybe impure, yeah, except mine wasn't. And frankly, there's nothing illicit about what I was doing at all. There's everything illicit about rocking up on a motherfucker's family home with a small army of state police. That's illicit. And yet you never said where it came from. You see how secretive they're being? What is ketamine made of? Oh, ketamine's made of ketamine hydrochloride. Eh. And now we're back to this page. Why are they using the page of why are they using the picture of a fern? What is up with that? Why is the fern involved? The the nematophagous fungus. It's found in nature. Downstream effects on tryptophan? You mean just like dimethyltryptamine? All right, so this is one of the ones that they're saying has ketamine. Okay, so they're saying it comes from a fungus, right? Now let's compare ketamine to psilocybin. Wait, what page was I using before? These PubChem. I was using PubChem. All right, this looks pretty much the same except there's a what is this? P is what? Phosphate or phosphorus? It's pretty much the same chemical structure except there's a phosphorus instead of a chlorine, right? So what if through the extraction process you use a salt extraction and it debonds this phosphorus, or you use that's a salt, isn't it? Let me just double check that that's what it is. Phosphorus. Is phosphorus a salt? So it's a, what is it then? It's a chemical element, but what is it? Phosphate salts. Okay, so it can be a salt. but it's the same. Let's move this over here. Okay, look at that chemical structure. Basically, just this is the chemical structure, and then this one has a chlorine and an oxygen, and one of the nitrogens is not present because it has been radicalized into a chlorine and an oxygen. Same with the anyway, you get the point. There's one, and the carbon is double bonded to the oxygen here. So I guess that brings another carbon. Same number of hydrogen. Now let's look at the psilocybin. Same number of carbon as as dimethyltryptamine. There's an extra hydrogen here and some more oxygen. That just means it's more. That means it's a more hydrated um, molecule with the phosphorus taking the place of the chlorine. They're the same fucking chemical. Now let's see. So they said nematophagous fungus Poconia chlamydosporia. All right, now let's look that up and see what it contains.
No, it doesn't blah blah blah. Blah, no, it doesn't contain that. Blah, see, they're totally different. They're totally different.
How so? So if ketamine can be produced by it, if this mushroom can produce ketamine, but it doesn't contain dimethyltryptamine or psilocybin, then what does it contain? What does it contain? If it doesn't contain dimethyltryptamine or psilocybin, then what does it contain that can be turned into ketamine? That's what I want to know. And this is just one thing that they're saying can be used to create ketamine. Okay, so you did an extract, ethyl acetate extract. All right, let's see what that is. Sounds very similar to an acid-base extraction with a solvent. Ethyl acetate. What is ethyl acetate? Is ethyl acetate a solvent? So it's a solvent. It's just like naphtha and cyclohexane. So basically, it's the same extraction as what I was doing with the Mimosa hostilis. Basically, basically the same extraction as what I was doing with the Mimosa hostilis. And then you found it to be ketamine. Isn't that a coincidence? Is it possible that the depolarization of psilocybin renders it as dimethyltryptamine, and then the salt extraction using a solvent such as ethyl acetate would result in ketamine? Is it possible that that's what's going on here, and that there's a big conspiracy, and that it's a huge what happened to me is a huge scam, and that there is no law enforcement involved in what happened to me, and that it's all criminal? Is it possible that it's all about money, and that these people don't actually care about proper medicine or about spirituality or about human rights? Is it possible that they're just trying to dope people up and they don't care who gets in their way? Is it possible that I was actually doing exactly what I was supposed to be doing and that the system was failing me? And instead of acknowledging that they made a mistake and allowing me to continue and praising me for being able to handle it on my own, is it possible that they took it as a blow to their ego and as a threat to their false industry, and that they decided to attack me and harass me instead of helping me? I think it's more than possible. I think it's actually rather likely. And we still haven't gotten any other information on what else ketamine can come from. Because if I'm not mistaken, this fungus is not abundant enough to explain the amount of. Oh, hey, Fujiwara. Hello. This. Oh, that's interesting. He's got a Hispanic and Japanese name. That's awesome. Anyway, is it possible that maybe this doesn't explain the the highly what seems to be like a high amount of ketamine, and that this mushroom is definitely not abundant enough to explain that? I don't know if you can tell, but I'm really tired of being abused. I'm not even angry right now. I'm just pointing out that there seems to be a lot of unnecessary obscurity when performing this sort of research, and that there seems to be a lot of strong arming and bankrolling going on where there really, really, really should not be, because the basis of this industry is supposed to be found foundationally supported by the opposite of the behavior that happened to me. And what I was doing is the actual foundational operation of the entire industry, and the way that I was doing it was very important because I figured out how to do it without breaking any laws other than this incorrect law of saying that this isn't allowed. It's a controlled substance. Yeah, I was controlling the substance until it was taken from me by force. I don't I shouldn't have to control the police. I shouldn't have to control the state police. And they were probably on controlled substances also. And if I'm not mistaken, they probably didn't have they probably didn't have them legally. See, it's a difference between what I did, which was buy all of the products, either from a store or a ClearNet website, without hurting anybody, without threatening anybody, being very, very upfront and respectful, extremely respectful, and then not pushing it on people and just using it to treat my own illness. And then there's a difference between that and people performing an armed raid on me. That didn't help. I was already as far along in my treatment as I could be without doing this. And I didn't want to do the ketamine clinic because I didn't want to be using intravenous drugs. It's as simple as that. And why would I want someone else to make my medicine when I can make it myself? Mine was better. I did a better job. That's all this comes down to, is that what I was making was better. I mean, the way that I extracted it, the medicine was better than theirs. And they got jealous and envious and greedy because they took my studio laptop too, which was completely clean. I never even watched porn on it. It had all clean plugins that I developed the suite over 10 years, and it only happened when I paid for everything. I've never had my studio laptop taken when it was full of pre-authorized software. So there you go. We still haven't gotten very much information on what plants ketamine comes from, but I think the process and the similarities between these chemicals can highlight some very important topics of consideration for what's actually going on with my case and what's actually going on with the medical industry and with law enforcement. There's a bunch of people acting like like they're way better people than they are. And they're acting like they're way better at what they do than what they are. And I'm not discounting that there might be some genuinely good people along the line. Seriously, I believe personally that there are some really, really, really good people involved in this process, but that is corrupted by greedy motherfuckers who just want to shoot people and jack off. And they want other people to do their homework for them, and they want to do shit and get away with it, and they just want to put down people who are actually doing the right thing so that they don't get caught, so they don't get exposed for lying when someone who's being honest succeeds. That's really what this seems to come down to. So no matter what happens to me, I'm doing my due diligence. I've been doing what I was supposed to, and I've been severely abused by a large number of people who are supposed to be helping me. And there's absolutely no reason for it because it doesn't actually benefit anyone in the long run. It's all based on short term gain at the cost of innocent individuals such as myself. And I don't know if you've noticed, but I still haven't hurt anyone over this. I still haven't gone out of my way to try to be violent or to try to take anyone down. Earlier on in this process, I was venting quite a bit and showing you how severe my mental illness was and how severe that this event triggered me. But ultimately, I haven't done anything wrong. I've only tried to help people and support people and then take care of myself. I wasn't trying to interfere with anyone's business. I didn't even want to. If you asked me to, I would have said, no, I don't want to sell this substance. Not right now. I'm not even close to being ready. And plus, it seems like you're saying it's illegal, so why are you guys selling it and acting like it's so different from what I was doing? And so instead of having that conversation with me, they decided just to threaten me and take it by force. What do you think God thinks about all this? Speaking of, what do you think God thinks about this? Let's see if we can find that plant that they're talking about. Let's see if we can find some more ideas about what ketamine comes from. Let me guess, it just comes from anything that contains DMT, including psilocybin, which actually is a ton of plants. There's a ton of plants around the world that contain sufficient DMT that when you put it through an acid-base salt extraction, it becomes acacia. What is this? Acacia species. Look at that. Acacia species containing DMT, containing psychoactive alkaloids. So basically what you're saying, look, it has DMT. It has DMT in the bark. And what was I doing? A bark extraction. So tell me, once again, what's the difference between what I was doing and what all of these other people are doing that the police are supporting? They're making money off of it. Is that the difference? And I wasn't making money off of it, but then you charged me with an intent to make money off of it when I had no intent to make money off of it, and you guys are making money off of it. Isn't that called kingpinning? Isn't that where you just place the charges that you could potentially get on someone who could actually figure out what's going on so that you try to silence them and not get in trouble? And isn't that the lowest of the low, especially because I wasn't doing what you're accusing me of? Of course, I was extracting the DMT from the Mimosa hostilis. It's the only way that I could treat my condition. Like I said, my extraction was better than the one that it was replaced with. My medicine was better. So basically, long story short, case closed. Ketamine comes from the acacia, which contains DMT. It doesn't contain ketamine, it contains DMT, and through what seems to be the same extraction process that I was doing, which, by the way, I wrote my own tech as well, based off of this one. So I am therefore an authority on this matter. You see? You see how that works? Writing up arrest warrants doesn't make you an authority on this matter. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Contributing to the science makes you an authority. Arresting someone is not contributing to the science. Arresting someone who's working on this stuff and who is contributing to the science is counterproductive to the science. It's some 1984 bullshit. So you guys have a lot of explaining to do or none at all. And what this long story short comes down to is you're not law enforcement. There is no real law involving this because it's all so hypocritical and doesn't actually seem to follow any of the real rules and regulations. And I'll tell you what this is. If I had been physically harming and or actually threatening people to acquire any of the materials involved in this process, that would be different. But I wasn't doing that. I was being so respectful. I was actually communicating with people in an ambassadorial manner, which is what I'm trained to do. Here's another thing. If I had stolen the materials which I was using to do this extraction, that would have been a problem. But I didn't do that. If I had been selling this to a degree which it could have been taxable and I wasn't paying taxes, that could have been a problem. But I wasn't even fucking close to doing that. If what I was creating was impure and causing myself harm, or if I gave it to someone else and it was so impure that it caused them harm, that would be a problem. However, that's not what happened. Mine was purer, or yeah, it was purer and better than what I've been getting from the prescription. So really, and once again, I'm not saying that I'm not grateful now that this has happened. I'm still grateful for the prescription that I have. The ketamine and esketamine prescription. I'm actually going to do the esketamine later today. It's just not as good as what I was doing. And you have to understand that. And also smoking it worked way better. The effects, the quote unquote tripping effects were minimized to like a couple minutes, and then beyond that it was just an effective medication. It just made me feel better and I could redose whenever I needed to, which I wasn't abusing it. Like I wasn't not participating in my world. I was using the medicine that I was making, extracting, to make my activities of daily living more tolerable, to renew my interest in life, and to treat my post traumatic stress disorder, which still remains yet diagnosed as exactly that, for the exact reason that if up until this point I had had a PTSD diagnosis, the situations against me would have been painted in a completely different light, which would have obviously proven me innocent. And that's what they're trying to avoid because they don't want to admit that I'm innocent and that they're the ones who are being evil. Who thinks Supreme Court should get involved? Who thinks Interpol should get involved? Oh, what if they're all complicit? I don't know. What do we do then? The question is, what happens when you treat someone in a certain way? Is that how you want to be treated? Because I, for one, would like to be treated with honor and respect. And so no matter how mad I've been getting, I haven't crossed the line. If you guys want to talk about what happened with Sonia, we can have a legitimate conversation about that. But if you start trying to derail the conversation, then it's over. And that's why we haven't talked about it, because everyone already knows that you guys are just trying to use that as an example against me. And that's the whole point, is you guys are just trying to end me when you guys should be not only helping me, but considering all the work that I've done in all these different fields, you should be respecting me, looking up to me, and referring to me. I outrank you. Just because you carry guns in a civilian area and raid people's homes, it doesn't mean you outrank someone. It means you're a criminal. It's criminal. There's some and frankly, let me tell you something important. There's a way to do that which isn't criminal, but you didn't follow any of those steps. First, it's called community outreach. It's called community outreach. First, you show up unarmed with good intentions. You lay out on the table what you're doing. You gather information about their operation, and you try to find out if you can work together. Try to find out if you can work together or at least not interfere with each other. That's called peacekeeping. It's called keeping the peace. And if there is conflict, you resolve it first through communication. The situation should have only escalated to that SWAT situation if I was harboring known criminals in my vicinity. And I mean known criminals as in like real serious shit, not just your fuck ass fucking bullshit. If I was stockpiling firearms with, without discussing it with the manufacturers and such and the local authorities. Look, and I don't mean local authorities as in like, oh, but I have a badge. No, I mean like, are you more well trained? And I don't just mean do you have more time with a gun in your hand? Like, actually look at the facts, which means that what is it? More community outreach, more communication. There was no communication with me. I've been told that I'm too mentally ill to own a firearm. And yet, when this case, which is entirely based on me making my own medication to treat my mental illness, when it goes to court, they say that I'm not mentally ill enough for it to go to mental health court and that it has to be treated as a criminal case. Someone look at my files and find out how many times I've been institutionalized for serious mental illness. And then look at my different diagnoses, piece it all together, and figure out what's actually going on here. Understand that there's a conspiracy to commit murder against me and that it's completely inappropriate. Completely inappropriate. And they basically took away my right to work. And they violated my pursuit of happiness. Everything was unconstitutional. There was no community outreach whatsoever. They just showed up at my house one day with a small army with rifles that I'm pretty sure they shouldn't have had, or at least shouldn't have been using in that operation. They also took a bunch of CIA documents that I had. I went overseas with the State Department, and we don't need to go into the details, but there's a very specific reason that I had those documents. And I never saw the FBI officer show me any federal credentials. This goes beyond a faux pas. This is way beyond a faux pas at this point. And what am I doing about this? Well, I'm continuing to go to my dialectical behavioral therapy. I'm continuing to attend regular recovery coaching meetings. I'm going to my group dialectical behavioral therapy. I'm volunteering at the garden with the maintenance crew. I'm trying to continue my education. Automotive education is what now I'm doing. I've taken a little bit of a step back from the audio engineering because I've been abused in that industry as well. Because of like George Mason, being complicit to this scenario because they denied my application again after I passed the most recent readmittance test. They denied it after that because of the law situation. It all comes back to just that there's a bunch of fucking dumbass gang shits who are acting like law enforcement, who are threatening people, and then they're turning everyone against me. And meanwhile, they don't actually even outrank me. They're not over their authority does not supersede mine. They just make more poor decisions because they have less to lose because they're not focused on gaining skills and helping the community. They're focused on using the name of law enforcement to further their own interests, which seem to go against the interests of the greater good. I'm serious. It's some 1984 bullshit. It's like the Nazis all over again. Because guess what? Not only do I have a TBI that needs treatment, I also have a circumcision that needs treatment.
Oh, penis. Oh, penis.
Okay, well, what about reproductive rights? Okay, well, what about I didn't consent to it and my parents were basically brainwashed? Okay, what about generational oppression? Okay, what about trauma? from amputation and then loss of function.
Oh, he has penis problems. He's just trying to get high. He's just trying to use that as an excuse to get high. It's his fault.
No. I was more fit than everyone on that team, and I was better trained. And if you guys want to start saying shit like this, you need to do the due diligence of seeing me in person, not with weaponry, and working this out like honorable and respectable young women. This shouldn't have to go into a courtroom because this isn't a courting issue. If you want to say it's a courting issue because of my circumcision, well, then how come you're all using it against me? How come you're letting these young women rape me and then covering it up? You want to explain that? There's nothing courting about that. There's nothing consensual about what happened to me. Consent was violated on the other side over and over and over again to an extreme degree. And it was egged on by the Me Too movement. And it was used against me when I was the opposite type of person as the person should have been persecuted. And yet I was persecuted twice as much. And I'm basically being threatened with death. I'm being threatened with death and an uncertain future, and I am the victim of a terrorist attack. Do you know how close I live to the Pentagon? I saw the Pentagon the day after the plane crashed into the Pentagon. I never forgot. And yet here I am being subjected to terrorist attacks from the very people who are supposed to be protecting me from them. If that doesn't spell jealousy, envy, and greed, fill in the blank. I'll be right back. I'm going to get some more coffee. Not to mention, every attempt I make at self defense is met with, that's not self defense, that's just violence. And we can talk more about that. We can talk more about all of this. But right now, I need to calm down again and focus on something productive. This has been productive. This is therapeutic to me. And if need be, hopefully, I can enlighten a few people with this documentation. That being said, I hope you have a good day.